My aunt and cousin barged into my life, insisting I hand over my newborn because I'm too poor to be a good mother. And when I steadfastly refused, they called CPS, spreading vicious lies that I was using drugs and planning to hurt my baby. So now I'm fighting tooth and nail to protect my son and clear my name. At 22, I left college 2 years ago, unable to keep up with the costs. The debt was overwhelming, and I wasn't even certain about my future path. Currently, I'm employed at a grocery store. It's not glamorous, but it covers the bills and provides health insurance, which became vital when I learned I was expecting. The baby's father is no longer in the picture, and I'm perfectly fine with that. He was a terrible person, and I'm better off without him. Discovering my pregnancy brought fear, but also a strange excitement, as I'd always dreamed of being a mother. It might sound foolish for a 22-year-old working retail, but I've been self-reliant since 16, when my parents died in a car crash. I then moved in with my Aunt Fiona, my dad's sister. I'm thankful she took me in, though she's always made it clear she sees me as a failure, believing I should have achieved more. Fiona has a daughter, Penny, who is 28 and married to Owen. They've been trying for children for about 5 years without success. They've pursued fertility treatments, IVF, and all those expensive procedures, but nothing has worked. Penny is fixated on having a baby. I genuinely feel for her. I see her pain. However, that doesn't mean I should feel guilty for my pregnancy when she can't conceive. So, when I told Fiona I was pregnant, she was far from pleased. She repeatedly asked what I intended to do and suggested adoption, questioning how I'd raise a child alone with no education or stable job. I told her I was keeping my baby, and that was final. Yet, she'd bring it up every few weeks, seemingly hoping I'd change my mind. When I was around 6 months pregnant, Penny visited Fiona's house while I was there. She began weeping, lamenting the unfairness of some people getting pregnant effortlessly while she, who had done everything right, followed all the rules, and spent thousands, still had nothing. I felt incredibly awkward sitting there, listening, but I remained silent. What was there to say? Then Penny looked directly at me and suggested that perhaps this was fate, that perhaps a higher power intended for her to raise my baby, because she could offer him everything he deserved, allowing me to return to school and reclaim my life. I simply stared, unable to believe she was serious. Fiona then interjected, agreeing with Penny and insisting I should consider what was truly best for the baby. I told them both I wouldn't give up my child and that the conversation was over. But Penny cried harder, claiming it wasn't fair, that she would be an excellent mother, and that I was being selfish. Fiona urged me to think it over and avoid rash decisions. I reiterated there was nothing to consider. This baby was mine, and I was keeping him. After that, the atmosphere in the house became very strained. Fiona constantly made subtle remarks about the difficulties I'd face, the expense of babies, and how I'd afford childcare. She wasn't wrong about the challenges, but her tone clearly conveyed her belief that I was making a grave error. Penny started visiting more frequently, bringing baby clothes and toys, expressing her excitement to be an aunt and her desire to help. It felt unsettling and possessive, as if she were plotting something. She'd ask about my birth plan, if I'd chosen a pediatrician, and offered to assist with research. I consistently said I had it managed, but she wouldn't let it go. The worst instance was when she inquired what would happen if complications arose during delivery and who would care for the baby if I couldn't. I told her that was a morbid thought and I wouldn't discuss it. She claimed she was just concerned for me and the baby, wanting to ensure our well-being. But it felt like she was hoping something would happen to me so she could intervene and take my child. My son arrived 3 weeks ago. The delivery went smoothly, and he's healthy, perfect, and I love him beyond measure. The first few days were tough. I was exhausted, sore, and learning to breastfeed. But my neighbor provided much help, bringing meals, and things were progressing well. Fiona visited the day after I returned home from the hospital. She held him for about an hour, repeatedly remarking on his beauty and how he resembled Penny as a baby, which was odd since Penny and I aren't directly related. Then she again questioned if I had truly thought about my choices and if I was confident I could handle being a single mother. I asserted my certainty and asked her to stop doubting my decisions, as I was his mother, and that was final. She claimed she was merely looking out for me, but I could tell she still hoped I'd reconsider. Penny arrived the next day with Owen, carrying an enormous gift basket filled with expensive baby items. Penny kept asking to hold him, taking pictures, and talking about how she would spoil him rotten as his aunt. Owen appeared uncomfortable with her intensity, but remained silent. Then Penny asked if I had given further thought to our conversation. I replied, "What conversation?" She clarified, referring to her and Owen adopting the baby. I told her I believed we had resolved this months ago and that I wasn't giving up my son. She began crying again, saying I was being cruel, that she would love him immensely and provide him with opportunities I never could. I became very angry then and told her she needed to leave my home and stop asking about my baby because he wasn't hers and never would be. She said I was being selfish and that I didn't understand what it was like to desire something so desperately and be unable to have it. I retorted that didn't entitle her to my child. Fiona intervened, claiming Penny was just emotional and that I should be more understanding. But I stated I was finished being understanding and that they both needed to accept this baby was mine and stop trying to guilt me into giving him away. Penny departed in tears, followed by Owen. Fiona lingered, telling me I was breaking her daughter's heart and that the least I could do was consider what was best for everyone involved. I told her the only person I needed to consider was my son, and what was best for him was staying with his mother, who loved him. She countered that love wasn't enough, and that Penny and Owen could offer him stability, a genuine family, college, funds, and all the things I couldn't provide. I said I was his real family, and that I would manage the rest, and that this discussion was over. Things were quiet for about a week after that, and I thought they had finally understood. But then, last Monday I was home with the baby when there was a knock at my door. It was a social worker from Child Protective Services, stating they had received a report that I was using drugs and planning to harm my baby. I felt nauseous. I've never used drugs, and the thought of someone claiming I intended to hurt my son made me physically ill. The social worker was quite kind and professional, explaining that all reports required investigation, but she could tell immediately the accusations were likely false, as I was clearly caring for the baby well, and he was healthy and fed. She still had to conduct a full investigation. So she looked around my apartment, asked many questions, and had me take a drug test, which was clean, of course. She said whoever made the report claimed I had been seen using drugs and had told someone I regretted having the baby and wished he would just vanish. I immediately knew it had to be Fiona or Penny who made the report. They were the only ones pressuring me about the baby, likely hoping CPS would take him so Penny could adopt him. The social worker mentioned that false reports were unfortunately common in custody disputes and family situations, and she could tell this was probably one of those cases. The investigation lasted 3 days, the worst 3 days of my life, as I was terrified they would take my baby, even though I knew I had done nothing wrong. I couldn't eat or sleep. I just held him, cried, and promised him I would never let anyone take him from me. Finally, the social worker called and said the case was being closed due to no evidence of wrongdoing, and the report appeared false. I knew it was Fiona, but I couldn't prove it. So I decided to sever ties completely. I packed all the baby items Penny had bought and dropped them off at Fiona's house with a note stating I didn't want them in my life anymore and that they were not welcome around my baby. Fiona called me that night, screaming that I was being overdramatic, that she was just trying to help, and that I was making a huge mistake. I told her I knew she or Penny had called CPS, and that what they did was unforgivable and could have ruined my life and taken my baby from me. She denied it at first, but then she said that perhaps someone was simply concerned about my ability to care for a baby, and that if I had nothing to conceal, I shouldn't be upset about the investigation. I stated that making false accusations to CPS was illegal, and that I never wanted to see her again. She then began crying, saying I was all the family she had left after my parents died, and that she loved me and only wanted what was best for everyone. I told her that if she loved me, she wouldn't have tried to destroy my life and take my child, and that what she did was evil and I would never forgive her. Penny then got on the phone and started screaming at me, saying I was ruining her life, and that I was a selfish person who didn't deserve a baby when she couldn't have one. She said she would be a better mother than me, and that my son would be better off with her and Owen, and that I was going to ruin his life because I was too young, foolish, and poor to raise him properly. I completely lost my temper then, and started yelling back that she was a deranged, baby-stealing maniac, and that if she ever came near me or my son again, I would call the police and get a restraining order. I said that just because she couldn't have children didn't mean she could steal mine, and that she needed serious mental health assistance. Fiona got back on the phone and told me I was out of line, and that Penny was just hurting, and that I should apologize. But I hung up on her and blocked both their numbers. It's been a week since then, and I keep receiving messages from other family members asserting I'm being too harsh, that Fiona and Penny are family, and that I should forgive them and resolve things. They claim Penny is devastated and Fiona is heartbroken, and that I'm tearing the family apart over a misunderstanding. But I don't believe it was a misunderstanding at all. I believe they called CPS hoping my baby would be taken away so Penny could adopt him. And I think that's twisted and unforgivable. I adore my son more than anything and would do anything to shield him. Right now, that means keeping him away from people who believe they have a right to him simply because they desire him. I know, I'm young and financially limited, but I love him, and I'm a good mother, and that should suffice. Fiona continues to say I'm making a mistake and will regret cutting off my family. But I believe my only error was trusting them in the first place, and failing to see how far they were willing to go to achieve their desires. So I suppose what I'm asking is, am I in the wrong for refusing to forgive them and severing ties completely? Or am I justified in protecting my son from people who attempted to have him removed from me? I feel like I'm losing my mind because some family members are giving me conflicting advice, and I don't know what to believe anymore. Update 1. I posted this a few days ago and received many responses, and I wanted to share an update because some recent events have only strengthened my conviction that I made the right decision. Some inquired about my neighbor who helped me after the baby was born. Yes, she's wonderful. Her name is Sandra. She's about 65, and her children are grown and have moved away. She's been like a grandmother to my son. She was actually the one who advised me to document everything because she used to work in family law and understands how these situations can escalate. So, yesterday morning, Sandra came over to check on us, as she does daily, and she seemed very troubled about something. She said a woman had been parked outside our apartment building for about an hour, just sitting in her car and watching our windows, and it made her uneasy. I looked outside, and sure enough, Penny's car was parked across the street, and I could see her in the driver's seat just staring at our building. I felt sick to my stomach, realizing she had likely been watching us for who knows how long without my notice. Sandra said she would call the police if Penny didn't leave, but I said, "Let me try to handle it first." So I went downstairs and approached her car. When she saw me coming, she rolled down the window and immediately started crying. She said she just wanted to see the baby, and that she missed him, and that she was sorry about everything that had occurred. I told her she needed to leave and that she was frightening me by sitting outside my home, watching us. And she said she wasn't trying to scare me. She just wanted to talk. I said we had nothing to discuss and that she needed to stay away from me and my son, or I would call the police and seek a restraining order. She then began sobbing, claiming she loved the baby and simply wanted to be a part of his life, and that it wasn't fair that I got to be a mother when she couldn't. I felt a fleeting moment of sympathy for her, but then I recalled what she and Fiona had done, and my anger returned. I told her that her infertility was not my problem, that she couldn't have my baby simply because she wanted one, and that she needed to seek help instead of stalking me. She insisted she wasn't stalking me and that she had every right to be on a public street. But I countered that sitting outside someone's home, watching them, was absolutely stalking, and that if I saw her car there again, I would call the police immediately. Then she uttered something that truly unsettled me. She said I couldn't keep the baby away from family forever, and that he deserved to know his real family who could care for him properly. I said I was his real family, and she said that blood didn't make a family, and that she had more love to give him than I ever could. The way she said it was so eerie and possessive, as if she truly believed my son belonged to her somehow. I told her she was delusional and needed professional help, and then I walked away while she was still crying in her car. She sat there for another 10 minutes before finally driving away, but I was agitated about it for the rest of the day. Sandra advised me to definitely file a police report, just to have it on record in case she returns. And I believe she's right. Then last night I received a call from my uncle Terry, who is also my dad's brother. And he said that Fiona had asked him to reach out to me to try to smooth things over. He said that he understood I was upset, but that family was important, and that I should try to forgive and move on. I told him what had happened with the CPS report and Penny stalking me, and he fell silent for a moment. Then he said that he didn't know about those things, and that Fiona had told him it was just a disagreement about the baby's future. I said it wasn't a disagreement. It was them trying to steal my child and making false accusations to the government, and that there was no coming back from that. He said he would talk to Fiona and try to get her to back off, but that I should consider family counseling to work through the issues. I told him there were no issues to work through because I was done with Fiona and Penny permanently, and that anyone who sided with them could stay away from me too. He seemed surprised by my firmness and said that I was burning bridges I might need someday. I said I would rather have no family than family who would try to take my child away from me, and that he could tell Fiona and Penny that if they contacted me again or came near my apartment, I would get a restraining order and press charges for harassment. After I hung up, I started thinking about what he said about burning bridges and wondering if I was being too extreme. But then I looked at my baby and remembered how scared I was when CPS showed up, and I knew I was doing the right thing. Sandra helped me install a security camera that points toward the street so we can see if Penny comes back, and she's going to keep an eye out during the day when I'm at work. My boss has been very understanding about me bringing the baby to work sometimes when I can't find childcare, and my coworkers have been supportive too. I know some people think I should try to work things out with my family, but they don't understand that these people tried to have my child taken away from me by lying to the government. That's not something you forgive and forget. That's something that could have destroyed my life and my son's life forever. I'm going to keep protecting my baby no matter what anyone says. And if that means I have to cut off toxic family members, then that's what I'll do. My son deserves to grow up safe and loved, not constantly under threat from people who think they have a right to him. Update 2. It's been quiet for the past week since Penny was stalking me, and I thought maybe they had finally gotten the message, but I should have known better. Yesterday was my day off, and I had planned to just stay home with the baby and catch up on laundry and such. But around noon, Sandra knocked on my door looking really worried. She said that Penny had come to her apartment that morning asking questions about me and the baby and claiming that she was concerned about my mental well-being. Sandra said Penny told her that I had been acting erratically and that the family was worried I might harm myself or the baby. I felt like I was going to vomit because I realized Penny was trying to build a case against me by getting my neighbors to say I was unstable. Sandra said she told Penny that I was a wonderful mother and that she needed to leave me alone. But Penny kept pressing and asking if Sandra had noticed me acting strangely or neglecting the baby. Sandra said Penny also asked about my work schedule and when I was usually home alone with the baby and whether I had any help taking care of him. She said it felt like Penny was gathering information for some reason and that it made her really uncomfortable. I thanked Sandra for telling me and for not giving Penny any information, and then I called the police to report the harassment. The officer who came out was very kind and said that what Penny was doing could definitely be considered stalking and harassment, especially given the history with the false CPS report. He said I should document everything, and that if it continued I could get a restraining order, but that they couldn't do much about someone asking questions in the neighborhood unless it escalated further. He did say he would drive by more, often to keep an eye on things, which made me feel a little better. But then this morning, the real chaos erupted. I was getting ready for work and packing the diaper bag when someone knocked on my door really hard, like they were trying to break it down. I looked through the peephole and saw Fiona standing there, looking absolutely furious. I didn't want to open the door, but she started yelling that she knew I was in there and that we needed to talk right now. She was being so loud that I was worried the neighbors would complain or that she would wake up the baby. So I opened the door but kept the chain lock on. She immediately started screaming at me about how selfish I was being and how Penny was having a breakdown because of me. I told her to lower her voice and that she needed to leave, but she kept yelling and trying to push the door open. She said that Penny had been hospitalized yesterday because she tried to hurt herself, and that it was all my fault for keeping the baby away from her. I felt terrible about Penny hurting herself, but I also knew that wasn't my responsibility, and that she needed professional help, not my baby. I told Fiona that I was sorry Penny was struggling, but that I wasn't responsible for her mental health, and that giving her my baby wasn't going to fix her problems. Fiona started screaming that I was heartless and cruel, and that Penny could die because of me. Then she said that if I really cared about what was best for the baby, I would let Penny adopt him before something terrible happened, and that she wasn't going to let me ruin everyone's lives because I was too stubborn to do the right thing. I asked her what she meant by something terrible happening, and she said that accidents happen all the time to young mothers who don't know what they're doing, and that it would be tragic if something happened to me and the baby had no one to care for him. The way she said it sounded like a threat, and I got really scared. I told her that if she was threatening me, I was calling the police right now, and she said she wasn't threatening anyone. She was just pointing out that life was unpredictable. I slammed the door in her face and called 911 while she was still pounding on it and yelling. The police arrived very quickly and found Fiona still outside my building, screaming about how I was killing her daughter. They spoke to her for a while and then came up to talk to me, and I recounted everything that had occurred, including the veiled threat about accidents happening to young mothers. The officer said that was definitely threatening language, and that combined with the stalking and harassment, it was enough for a restraining order. They arrested Fiona for disturbing the peace and threatening behavior, and I gave them a full statement about everything that had happened over the past month. The officer said that they would recommend I get an emergency restraining order against both Fiona and Penny, and that I should speak to a lawyer about pressing charges. I called in sick to work because I was too shaken up to leave the baby, and I've been a nervous wreck all day, jumping at every sound. Sandra came over and stayed with me for a while, and helped me research lawyers who handle restraining orders and family harassment cases. I found one who specializes in this kind of thing, and has an appointment available tomorrow morning. Sandra is going to watch the baby while I go meet with her because I don't want to take him out in public until I know Fiona and Penny can't get near us. The lawyer I spoke to on the phone said that what Fiona and Penny have been doing is a clear pattern of harassment, and that the threat about accidents happening was definitely grounds for a restraining order. She said that false CPS reports combined with stalking and threats often escalate, and that I was smart to document everything. She also said that I should consider moving if possible, because people who are this obsessed with getting a child sometimes don't stop even with restraining orders in place. That terrifies me because I can't afford to move right now, and I don't have anywhere else to go. I keep thinking about what Fiona said about accidents happening and wondering if she was really threatening to hurt me or if she was just trying to scare me. Either way, I don't feel safe anymore, and I'm afraid to be alone with the baby. I never thought my own family would try to destroy my life over a baby, but I guess I didn't truly know them at all. The Fiona who raised me after my parents died would never have done something like this. But maybe that person never really existed. I'm going to get that restraining order tomorrow and press charges if the lawyer thinks I have a case. I'm also going to ask about moving the case to family court, because I'm worried they might try to use Penny's suicide attempt to claim I'm an unfit mother for some reason. This whole situation is insane, and I can't believe it's my real life. But I'm going to fight for my son no matter what it takes. He's innocent in all this, and he deserves to be safe and protected from people who would use him as a pawn in their twisted games. I'll update after I meet with the lawyer tomorrow, assuming nothing else crazy happens between now and then. Thank you to everyone who has been supporting me through this nightmare. It really helps to know that I'm not crazy and that other people understand how messed up this situation is. Final update. I met with the lawyer and successfully obtained emergency restraining orders against both Fiona and Penny. I wanted to provide one last update because some people have been asking what transpired. The restraining orders were fairly straightforward to secure because I had all the necessary documentation and police reports, and the lawyer stated it was one of the clearest cases of harassment she had encountered. Both Fiona and Penny are required to maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from me and my son, and they are prohibited from contacting me directly or through intermediaries. The lawyer also assisted me in filing charges for making false reports to CPS and for stalking and harassment. She mentioned that while proving who made the CPS call is difficult, as caller identity is protected, the pattern of behavior unequivocally indicates it was part of an ongoing campaign to have my baby removed. Fiona was released from jail the day after her arrest, but she violated the restraining order almost immediately by having other family members call me to try to persuade me to drop the charges. Each time someone called on her behalf, I reported it to the police, and now she is facing additional charges for violating the protective order. Penny was discharged from the hospital, and apparently her husband, Owen, finally recognized the alarming nature of the entire situation and filed for divorce. The lawyer stated that the charges will likely result in probation and mandatory counseling for both of them, which suits me fine. I don't necessarily wish for them to be imprisoned, but I wanted it on record that their actions were wrong and illegal. As for moving, I found a small apartment across town that I can afford, and Sandra is going to help me pack and move next weekend. It's unfortunate that I have to uproot my life due to their obsession, but I'll feel safer knowing they don't know my new address. My new place is actually closer to my work and within a better school district, so it might ultimately prove to be a hidden advantage. Sandra will miss us, but she said she understands why I need to move and that she'll visit once I'm settled. Work has been incredibly supportive throughout all of this, and my boss even gave me a small raise and mentioned that a supervisor position with improved benefits might become available when I'm ready. It's reassuring to know that some people believe in me and perceive me as capable of more than simply being a struggling single mother. The restraining orders are valid for a year and can be renewed if necessary, but hopefully by then Fiona and Penny will have received the help they require and moved forward with their lives. That concludes my updates, and I likely won't post again unless something significant occurs. But hopefully, this marks the end of the drama, and we can now live our lives in peace.